name is Kamanja. I'm a nutritionist in this department, nutrition department. I am an assistant chief nutrition officer. I work in Ward 1E, the pediatric oncology ward. The type of food that is eaten by people suffering from cancer is determined by the nutritional status of the patient. As a nutritionist, one has to take some measurements that are going to tell us or lead us to making a diagnosis to know what type of food to give that patient. We do nutritional assessment of the patient to determine the nutritional status of that patient. And the ways that we do that is by, first of all, taking the anthropometric measurements of that patient by carrying out measurements such as taking the weight of the patient, taking the height of the patient, taking the mark of the patient. Those are some of the measurements that we do. There are others, so that we are able to determine the BMI of that patient and generally the nutritional status of that patient. The second thing that we do is we look at the biochemical findings, the lab results. They are able to tell us what to give the patient depending on how they are. And the third thing we do is looking at the clinical assessment of the patient. Also tells us, is the patient clinically wasted? How is the patient? And then we also do the last one, which is taking the diet history of the patient. How has this patient been eating? What type of foods have they been eating? So when we do the four of those steps of establishing the nutritional status of our patient, we are able to tell at what point are we receiving this patient, and we are able to plan the diet accordingly. The other way of determining what meal to give the patient is the location of the tumor or where the disease is. For example, if a patient has the cancer of the throat, you would want to tailor the diet of that patient in such a way that it is going to be easy for the patient to swallow the food. So that also will tell us how to modify the diet for that patient. Another thing is if the patient is coming to us, the patient could be, we are building the patient to start the treatment, and the modes of treatment could be either chemotherapy, it could be radiotherapy, it could be surgery. So we build the patient nutritionally so that they can be in proper nutritional status before treatment. That is another thing that will also determine. And again, another thing that determines what type of a diet to give the patient is when the patient starts treatment. We realize that when the patient starts treatment, they develop side effects due to the treatment. And therefore, we have to tailor our diets depending on the side effects that the patient gets. For example, some patients get diarrhea. Some patients they start vomiting, and they were not vomiting before the treatment. Some of them lose weight. Others gain a lot of weight due to treatment, especially if they're taking steroids. Other patients lose appetite, and we have to give food diets that enhance the appetite. They are able to take it up. Some other patients, they can diarrhea, they can even have constipation. So those are some of the side effects whereby a nutritionist has to come in and tailor the diet of that patient according to now what the patient is experiencing. So that is another way that is going to determine how we tailor our diet or what the cancer patient takes. Another way that also helps us to decide what type of a diet you're going to give the patient is how is the stage of the disease. For example, a patient may just be okay and eating orally. That patient, the diet will be different from a patient who is eating enterally. If a patient is not able to eat orally, they have an nasogastric tube, then it means we have to tailor our diet to have a full fluid diet whereby we make it nutritionally healthy for that patient to be given, and it's able to go into the tube easily. Also, if a patient is not able to feed orally, and if a patient is not able to feed enterally, they're not able to feed at all, we have parenteral nutrition. So during parenteral nutrition is whereby we feed our patient through the veins. We have infusions that we use that are able to give the patient nutritionally healthy diet through the veins. Yeah, we infuse through the veins. It can be total parenteral or partial parenteral. It is upon the nutritionist to assess the patient using the methods that I've talked about above to determine whether we are going to give partial parenteral or total parenteral. When feeding cancer patients, just like any other disease, a nutritionist is supposed to assess a patient individually, individual requirements of that patient, depending on how they are feeding, what they are feeding on. So when you're feeding a patient, the frequency differs. But we have the general frequency of, we have our breakfast, then you're supposed to have our 10 o'clock snack, which should be a healthy snack, like a cup of porridge, like tea, like a milk, a glass of yogurt or a milk or a fruit. And then the patient can also eat lunch. And then at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, a patient is supposed to eat a snack. And then they have dinner. And then even at bedtime, they can have a bedtime snack. So the frequency matters because if a patient, for example, is on parenteral nutrition, that infusion runs 24 hours. Because it's running slowly, it can run throughout the day. But if a patient is eating orally, we have 3 main meals and 2 snacks. And if a patient has no appetite, we give small frequent feeds. So really, the frequency matters. It depends on the disease status of the patient, how the patient generally is. You cannot say there's this fixed a number of hours so that you can feed the patient. It depends on the state of the patient. So we can have even 4 hourly feeds or even more feeds. That is 6 feeds in a day or even more, depending on the state of the patient and how the patient is feeding. The difference will come in the individual patients. Because even the diets that we give our cancer patient, we know cancer is a highly catabolic disease. So the patient is required to take high protein, high kilocalorie diet. That will now be determined by also the mode of feeding of this patient. So it will differ because the foods are different. For example, if I take a patient who is suffering from diabetes, for example, the meals are going to be different. So even for cancer patient, it's different because we need to build these patients up. We need to give them foods which are calorie dense. They have a lot of calories in them. Even if a patient takes just a small portion, we are sure the patient is taking adequate. At least they have taken all the macronutrients and all the micronutrients. So it differs, and also it differs because of mode of treatment, because of the side effects of treatment, it will differ. So generally, supplementation, we do not encourage a lot of supplementation unless it is been prescribed by the doctor. For us, nutritionists, once a patient is eating a well-balanced diet, a diet that is containing carbohydrates, like we have maize flour, we have wheat flour, we have our spaghetti, we even have our sugarcane there. And then the other important constituent is protein. We can have animal protein or plant proteins. The plant proteins, for example, we have black beans here, we have yellow beans, we have lentils, and then our food should also, the animal proteins, for example, fish, we have eggs, we have milk, and then also our diet should contain a lot of fruits and vegetables, like you can see here. And then we also have to fry our food in little oil. We prefer oils to fats because we know oils are unsaturated, they're easily digestible in the body. And then also we need to take a lot of water, at least 8 glasses of water in a day, that is like 2 liters, which helps us to flush out the toxins and all that. So once a patient is able to eat a well-balanced diet or a healthy nutritious diet, there's actually no need of supplement, not unless there's a need whereby the doctor prescribes the supplement. But otherwise, as long as someone is eating a healthy nutritious diet, then you're able to get the other vitamins, all the vitamins, the vitamin A, zinc, you are able to get from the diet. So once someone has a healthy nutritious diet, then you do not need the commercial supplements. There's no food that a cancer patient is not supposed to eat. A cancer patient is supposed to eat all the foods, a healthy nutritious diet, like I've explained. There are some myths that are there about some certain foods, but there are no researches that have come up giving a direct correlation between the foods and either advancement of cancer or even predisposing one to cancer. But there are no researches that have been shown. So for a cancer patient, should be able to eat a well-nutritious, a healthy, balanced diet. So there is no food that they are not able to eat, but moderation is key in nutrition. When we talk about the healthy, nutritious foods, we eat in moderation and we eat a variety. We're supposed to have a variety of foods. For example, if you're eating like the proteins, you can have your black beans today, maybe tomorrow you have your meat, the other next day you have your white meat like fish, and the other day you have like lentils. So variety is key. We keep a variety. That ensures that you don't take a certain type of food without having variety, because variety introduces different nutrients. Different nutrients are introduced. You get these nutrients like proteins of high biological value, like the animal proteins, and then the other one you will get from the other protein you get from the plant proteins, which are also good. During meal preparation, the oils are the ones that are the vegetable oils are the ones that are liquid at room temperature. There are several, even in the supermarkets. So as long as one is liquid at room temperature, that is an oil, that is unsaturated fat, which is easily digestible by the body. The ones that are solid at room temperature are the ones that are not easily broken down and they have some cholesterol. Yes, and you find that there are some that are liquid at room temperature, but when you keep them for some time, they solidify. That tells us that they are not actually totally cholesterol free. They have some cholesterol in them. That is why they solidify at room temperature. So we would advise as nutritionists for the oils. There are several. The ones that are liquid at room temperature. Yeah. Well, the issue of microwave, when you heat foods at very high temperatures, you denature them. But the radiation in the microwave does not affect the food at all. So they can actually eat the food from the microwave. Just ensure that when you warm your food in the microwave, you're able to stir it and just mix it up so that you're not burnt because of the high temperatures. But otherwise, there are no researches that have shown that microwave actually spoils food to make them carcinogenic. Some of the myths that we have had with cancer patients is such that they are not supposed to take milk, sugar is also being mentioned, and red meat. And that's why I have said nutrition is about moderation. Those foods do not predispose in any way. Even sugar has been mentioned, but you realize that every body cell requires glucose for it to function well, and we get that from sugar and all those foods that have been mentioned. So there's no food that predisposes one to getting cancer or to making it worse. Moderation is key, because even milk, you just take milk is a source of protein, is a source of many other minerals and vitamins. So meat is the same. We realize also that cancer patients tend to have low hemoglobin levels, and red meat is one of the sources of iron. So we'd encourage patients to eat all those foods that have been mentioned, because again, as I said, we do not have any researches to the effect that they either predispose one to cancer or they make it worse. Moderation is key. Let us eat our food as in variety. Today you eat meat, tomorrow you eat lentils or beans, the other day you eat a fish or whatever you have. We also have to remember that we have to eat our food what is locally available, what we have. So even if it's a cancer patient, when she sits down with a nutritionist, they are able to tailor their meal around what is available in the household. Yes, even if they don't have this, they can take this. So they can be able to alternate, to substitute. They can be able to substitute one food for another, especially what is locally available in the household. The message that I have is one should be able to screen regularly for cancer. And from the nutrition department, diet is key. What we eat is key. One should be able to eat a well nutritious, healthy diet and ensure that our weight is at healthy levels. We shouldn't be obese, because the obesity and overweight and obesity is one of the predisposing factors to cancer. So one should be able to try as hard as possible to be at a healthy weight level, which is a BMI of between 18.5 to 24.9. What we eat, we are what we eat. It's basically we are what we eat. Let us remember, what we take in and what we take out should have a balance, so that we don't have excess energy to store, what leads us to obesity. So just remember, we are what we eat and absorb, so that if you eat, the calories that we eat in a day should balance the calories that we get out through the normal physical activities and also through exercise. So another thing is that we should consider, apart from the diet, we should also consider being active physically, physical exercise. Physical exercise is what we do for at least 30 minutes per day. It should be something that makes one pant and sweat. In that way, even if it's walking, it should be a brisk walk. So when one does that for at least 30 minutes in a day, at least 150 minutes in a week, that is like 5 days in a week, at least that one is able to help us at least shed some of the excess calories that we might have eaten for the day. So you combine diet and you do also exercise. That is key. And in case there is anybody with any questions on nutrition awareness, nutritional status, you want your BMI taken, you want your health status to be evaluated, your nutritional status, any staff can walk into the Diet and Advisory Clinic, which is in Clinic 17 every day of the week.